Hello, welcome to Evidence for Faith. It's your host, Michael Lane, and continuing in our series on artifact facts. And as you can see, I got a couple of artifacts right here before me. We're going to look at one of these in particular. We're going to look at closely at one, but we'll also talk about some of these other things here that are related. But let's just get right into it. A scarab, which is what this is a replica. This is, I didn't steal from a museum, but these are sometimes made of jewel and some other type of rocks and stuff like this that are semi-precious or precious. And then it's shaped like a beetle on one side. If you turn it over, it's got Egyptian hieroglyphics underneath it. They come in various sizes. When pharaohs are often buried, they were important people in Pharaoh's court. These were usually placed also upon their chest, their scarab, because it'll have their name on it, which is one way that Egyptologists can sometimes determine pharaohs, because they have this right on there. Some are big, some are small. Little dinky one right here. Oh boy. But anyway, Jakob, going back to the Bible, the biblical character Jakob, is recorded that he entered into the land of Egypt. Now, you got to go back in the book of Genesis for this. And what scholars, basically, most biblical scholars will agree was around the 17th century BC. Now, that's the whole story when Joseph and his brothers come in, if you recall how that goes. And in chapter 47 of the book of Genesis, we even read that Joseph introduces his father Jacob to Pharaoh himself. And since Joseph is in an elevated position, one of the most highest positions in the land, Pharaoh then, according to the Bible, elevates Jacob also. Let me just read this out of the English Standard Version here. This is Genesis chapter 47, verses 5 and 6. And it reads, "Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen. And if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock.'" Now, that's an important thing, because Jacob now is elevated into the position of dealing and handling the royal flocks. You see, the Egyptians were primarily farmers. They lived along along the Nile River, where there's moisture and stuff, not out in the deserts and stuff. And the land of Goshen is up towards the delta into the Mediterranean. So it was a place of, they were farmers. They primarily were farmers. So taking care of flocks and stuff, being shepherd, that was something that many Egyptians didn't do. But Pharaoh had flocks, and so he puts Jacob right in charge of them, and that elevates Jacob into a very, very important role. He now becomes not just a guy who's a shepherd, but as you saw, Pharaoh actually elevates him to be in charge of them. So he becomes like a vassal, or shall we say a liege, to Pharaoh, an official court person taking care of Pharaoh's business, dealing with this entire thing with the flocks and stuff. Now, being at this time that we read about in Genesis, the Hyksos were in power at this time, sort of a peaceful people, and so that is the time frame. And Egypt is doing very well. It's really it has influence into different areas, into what is today Israel, into the Levant area there, across North Africa, etc. They had a lot of land and stuff that they took charge of, and people were coming, according to what we read in the Bible, were coming to Egypt because there was famines going on and things, and they're getting food and stuff like this from Egypt and buying it there. Well, because of this, people might buy flocks and stuff also. Pharaoh had flocks that were multiplying, no doubt, and so some were being sold. Now, the thing is, all these transactions would have to go through Jacob's office, since he has been appointed the person in charge of all this. Thus, the point I'm getting to, Jacob would have had to have scarabs. A scarab, probably more than one, but he would have a scarab like this. And what they would do with these, they're so important, because he's going to have documentation. Like here, I have some Egyptian papyrus, and what they would do is they would tie up documents and stuff with cord. And then they would put clay on it, and then take the seal and press it in there, like we would do today with what you would call like an important document that you have to take to a notary public to have them seal it. It has to have the stamp on there. In our marine biology programs that we did for years, one of the places we used to go to for the students to get contact with dolphins, we had to fill out, each student had to fill out a special form. It had to have the notary seal on it. So the students had to, I had to mail it out to the student's family. They had to have it notary sealed, signatures and stuff done, verifying that this is the right person, and then they would bring it with them. So what notary publics do. And so Jakob would have had to have something like this. He would have had to have his signature or his Scarab imprint put on different type of documents being sealed, so it would be official that way. Now, there have been several scarabs. Matter of fact, there are so many scarabs. I went to the Israel Museum. We have some images here showing you just a couple of pictures that I took of just different scarabs. Some of them made out of very, very precious stones, all shaped like a beetle. Apparently, the Egyptians were sort of fascinated with the dung beetle. Yeah, I don't understand. It's also a culture that worship cats. I'm not a cat lover. I'm sorry, I'm not. But they would make these official seals, these scarabs. Pharaohs would have these and stuff. They would have their names and hieroglyphics on it, their identification, but it would be shaped like a beetle. And these have been found all over. I mean, we keep finding new ones of these. And concerning Jakob, they have found, as far as I'm aware, 27 different scarabs that have the name, it appears to be the name Jakob on it, and also that he is in an elevated position. Avarice today is a place in Egypt in what was then called the land of Goshen, and Avarice was where we believe, many scholars do believe, that that's where the Israelites were living, the Hebrew people were living there, and even during their captivity, this was their land. We have a part of a lesson on this dealing with who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus, if you want to look that series up, and it talks about that. But that was the land of Goshen, and so of course they found one of these, this is the replica of the real one, but they found it in Avarice, and outside of a very, very important home, a palace, if you will. They have also found these scattered all over, even up into what is today the Levant area, because the Egyptians, they were in control of a lot of places. They had a lot to say to a lot of different things, different countries and stuff. And so there's 27, as I say, of these that have been found just with what appears to be Jacob's name on it. Now, this would make perfect sense with the Bible. If the Bible is true, Jacob's elevated, he would have scarabs. And since they found him in Goshen like this fits the biblical description well. Now, what do we have? Let me, as I told you, this is the enlargement, but let me show you in detail what this looks like. And I'll explain somewhat of the hieroglyphics to you that are on here. So here we have the scarab that you can see, the underside. The other side, like I say, is shaped, it's hard to tell because it's worn over time, but it's shaped like a beetle. And as you look at this, there's hieroglyphics. Now the name part is actually in here. Now the ancient languages like this often didn't have vowels, and there are no vowels in this, but there's two feathers or reeds up here. That has like a Y or a J sound in English. Then there is the symbol here, which is gives you a like a C in English, a C letter. Then there's these slopes here or hills, which actually give us a B type of a Q and a B sort of sound together. So what we see here is Jakob, Jakob, Jakob is how it's pronounced, which is Jacob. And as we look at this, there's two other symbols down below. There is this one here, which is supposed to be, I believe, representing like a house. It's an H. And then below it, we have like a mouth, and the mouth represents an R sound here. So har, Jakob har, Jakob har. Now, as we go back here, let me just explain a little bit of what I'm talking about. As you can see on an illustration we're showing you right now is a close-up of this showing you the letters having to do with the like the Y, K, Q, H, R, or in English it'd be the J sound, a C, a B, and then the H and the R. Now, Jakob, which you see at the top of this, is very easy to understand. because again, there's no vowels, so that would be the way you would say this in ancient times. This is representing for Jacob, Jakob. And then as you look at the H and the R stands for Har. Har means like a mountaintop or a high hill. In other words, it's an elevated place. Thus, Jacob is in an elevated position. This is what this signifies. So the person who had this scarab, these 27 scarabs, dealing with the flocks and stuff that they found throughout the Egyptian area, this person had to have been somebody whose name was Jakob, and he had to be in an elevated position. The time period fits the exact time period of when chapter 47 of the Bible is taking place, so it fits the Jacob of the Bible, who was the patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. Thus, we see some fascinating discovery here. Chapter 47 in the book of Genesis, and the story there having to do with Jacob and being in an elevated position with these scarabs, which again, this all fits together beautifully. So again, we see evidence that this supports the biblical story. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little lesson here with these little scarabs that we have, and I hope you'll tune in for some more of our artifact facts that we have. Be sure to check out our other things. We have an excellent series on the Exodus itself, the Pharaoh of the Exodus, and others. Fantastic things to look at to help deepen your faith and reliance upon the Word of God. So, until we meet again, my friends, take care, and may God bless.